We are cleared for takeoff. Great. So yes, everyone who's joined this session of the summit, thank you for joining us today. This is our MEP, which stands for Manufacturing Extension Partnership panel session here at the annual PreVeil CMMC Industry Summit. My name is Vince Petrecca. I head up business development at PreVeil. And today I'm joined by Richard Sullivan, who's with the Mass MEP out of Massachusetts, Darold Tippey with TMEC, that's the Texas MEP, and Nathan Sable with Genedge, that is the Virginia MEP. And I'll give you all a chance to introduce yourselves in a minute and say a little bit about your organizations. But first of all, thanks a lot for joining us today. As you know, PreVeil works with MEPs across the country. And I know that like PreVeil, you are fully committed to helping small to mid-sized manufacturers, not just to survive, but to thrive in changing market conditions. I'm pleased to have the three of you with me to discuss the challenges small to mid-sized manufacturers face when addressing compliance with DoD mandated NIST 800-171 and CMMC Level 3 cybersecurity controls. These organizations, wish to comply with the DoD regulations, but they also wish to continue growing their businesses through, ongoing and future DoD contracts. Along with that, though, they can't afford to spend an inordinate amount of time or money achieving this compliance. They don't have the teams of people available to put on this. It takes away from their focus in their business. And I really feel like that's where the members of the MEP National Network, like you, provide the kind of help to keep their businesses thriving. Before we get into the details of, related to CMMC, please each take a turn to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself and the MEP organization you're representing. Why don't we start on my screen at the top left? Nathan, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure. Thanks, Vince. Nathan Sable. I'm with Genedge. I'm the practice manager for the cybersecurity IT practice. Genedge has been around since the 1990s, specifically focused on manufacturing companies in Virginia, provide a various amount of services, including practice improvement, advanced manufacturing, pretty much the whole gambit. We got into the cybersecurity world about 2 years ago because there's a large DoD base in Virginia, and our clients pushed us in that direction. So we've focused on that. And for Genedge, we serve manufacturers, but we also support other firms in the DoD supply chain. So we kind of try to serve everyone in that cybersecurity world. So that's kind of our goal.
Very good. Thank you, Nathan. Richard, you want to go next?
Yeah, Rich Sullivan. I've been with MassMep for just over 4 years. Similar to Genedge, we've been around since the 90s. Had the cooperative agreement with NIST to be the MEP Center for Massachusetts. And MEPs nationwide focus exclusively on small and medium-sized manufacturing companies. And that's why we were created through an act of Congress. So that's our goal. We've been in the cybersecurity space for probably close to 3 years now. And again, it was a combination of a NIST directive and what our clients were running into with things like DFARS and now the interim rule and CMMC. But yeah, we cover all the typical manufacturing, primarily continuous improvement, and now all the smart manufacturing technologies that are making companies better, stronger, and faster.
Very good. Thanks, Rich. Darold, do you want to wrap up the intros?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Darold Tippey. In some ways, I'm a little unique. I mean, I'm actually a retired Army Colonel, Corps of Engineers. So I was in DoD for 29.5 years, essentially. But I am with TMEC. TMEC is the Texas flavor of the MEP. It's very much like my fellow people in the national NIST MEP network. Our goal is to provide all the services that they talk about. I lead a team of people working on cyber across Texas, but we've got like 7 regions or whatever. So I've got people in each of those regions. But much like my cohorts here, we have a lot of people in the DoD program. There's a lot of big DoD programs that are being manufactured, like the F-35 in Fort Worth. That's just down the street, really. And then, Raytheon and others, and missile defense. And there's just 7 of the 10 big primes are here in Texas. Okay, well, that generates a great big, huge supply chain. And, we do a lot of work in that supply chain to keep them compliant and other things. Now, much like Richard here, TMEC's been involved in this for roughly about 3 years, maybe a little more, pretty much since the beginning when MEP got involved in this. And I've been doing this kind of work for some time, because I even did some of it when I was in a green suit. So, it's not new to me. Trying to think anything else unique about TMEC. Yeah, TMEC's big. I don't know how big the other MEPs are because they range in size, but we are one of the bigger MEPs. We probably got 60, easy 60, 70, maybe, and 80 people across the state. But Texas is big. What can I say?
It's a lot of space. It's a lot of space to cover, and it's a big set of businesses down there. In fact, really all 3 of the states represented here are key states for the DoD contracting base. So I'm really happy to have them all represented. Probably
one thing I should mention, I think everybody on this call is, but all of us are in the NIST working group. So, as part of MEP or whatever, we're all associated with the NIST 800-171 working group. Hopefully I didn't misspeak, but Nathan, I'm pretty sure you are, and Richard, I was thinking you were too, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, we all are.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Darold, and thanks, guys. Really appreciate having on board for this. Let's go ahead and get started with the content. And Darold, since you just took a drink, I'll go back to you to start with the first question, especially since you're so focused on cybersecurity. Why are MEPs engaging so actively in the cybersecurity space with small and medium-sized manufacturers? What makes this an important aspect of helping smaller companies thrive?
Well, it's not just small companies. MEP is all about helping particularly small and medium-sized companies and the like. But, DoD came to MEP because it is the federal agency, which is an expert in manufacturing and pretty much all areas of manufacturing, to help out in this process early on. Now, if you look at the actual DoD supply chain, the primes and bigger companies at most, they're probably 5 to 10%. The small to medium companies, I'll say tier 2, tier 3, tier X, whatever, that's 90+% of the DoD supply chain. And they're actually the ones that this is the most difficult for. So, if that supply chain can't make it, this is not a choice. I was also, besides being a colonel, I was like a frontline guy. I would be up and, I'd be on like the Afghan, Pakistani border, wherever, all those vacation capitals of the world. Okay, and DoD needs those small manufacturers to be successful. So they can't afford for them to fail, but they also can't afford for them not to meet these cybersecurity requirements because too many major programs have been stolen by our adversaries.
Exactly. No, I think that's why we're here today. It's so important. I think we both have a vested interest in working with those companies that are out there that are being targeted, and helping and implement solutions that protect our nation's data. Agreed. Richard, anything to add to that?
Just that our name, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. We act as an extension of our clients' staff. These small companies just don't have the resources to focus on things like cybersecurity, right? Because they're making precision machined parts for aircraft, or and they're getting product out the door. So we go in there and we can help them take a different look at their environment, basically look at their manufacturing operation. Most of what we do is continuous improvement, just making things better and faster and minimizing scrap and waste. But the whole cybersecurity part, it becomes a business enabler, really, because it's getting to the point now where if they don't have their act together in that area, then they're not going to get business, and it's going to be a non-starter at that point.
Yeah, it's part of the table stakes, right? Part of the foundation.
Right. Well, one of the things, just kind of to build on what Richard said here, we've actually improved operations and business at the same time while we were doing this. And I've actually had businesses comment on me telling me that. It's like now we have capabilities to do things financially and other things securely that we didn't have before. And also there's the threat of ransomware out there that's been all over the news. And, DoD or non-DoD ransomware can destroy a small business.
I think there's a stat that a high percentage of companies that get hit with a ransomware go out of business in the next 12 months. It is a little scary. Thanks for that. Yeah. Nathan, how about you? What are you seeing in terms of the CMMC program, the attention around it, and how that's focusing, at least your DoD customers, in increasing their focus on cybersecurity?
Yeah, I mean, we've grown into this business mainly because the demand from our clients, and our clients have asked us for support. They will hear something like, well, I need to put my SPURS score in from a prime. What does that mean? How do I do that? And so they reach out to their MEP for guidance and help, and a trusted advisor along the way to do it. So the demand is just shot through the roof with them needing support. So we've adapted and tried to grow with our clients to make sure we can support them to maintain their contracts, really. And another reason we've come into this market is really the market itself is pretty chaotic right now. The cybersecurity market is all over the place with pricing and services. And so if you're a small town guy, a small manufacturer, you really don't know where to go, who to talk to, and what pricing makes sense. So, because you've never been in this industry before. So the MEP kind of, provides that solution to that client to say, well, we've seen these prices, we've seen these solutions, and can provide guidance along the way to help them make smart decisions in their cybersecurity infrastructure, and be that trusted advisor along the way. So that's kind of where we've placed ourselves, one, to just kind of calm the market a bit, try to stabilize it, provide some kind of price transparency to it, and then make sure our clients are receiving the value that they need to continue doing their work.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, guys. Great answers. And, any of the listeners out there that are not yet engaged with their local MEP and can see how they could help, please get in touch with them. Let one of us know if you need help reaching them. We can help make that happen. You guys are a great resource. Okay, let's go to the next. Let's go to another question here. Nathan, let's start with you on this one. Why are the MEPs a good option for these organizations to help get started? Say someone's just getting started, what would be the advantage of working with an MEP right up front? Yeah, and puts us in kind of a unique place, is we can kind of jumpstart a cyber program for a small business, because it's traditionally not been something that they thought about ever. It's not on the radar in any way. So the easy answer is, we have a really good relationship with DoD. The MEP network does. Many MEPs have grants that help small businesses get started, and we do in Virginia. We've had one for this is our 3rd year running it. And it's the initial just to get you started. So it's a little bit of subsidy support from DoD that we help small businesses to kind of jumpstart their program. And that's usually, the beginning stages of getting compliant with DFAR 7012, is what most manufacturers are looking for. So that's our immediate goal. And I hear from small business owners all the time,
help me get compliant with DFAR 7012, and then so I can have some breathing room to kind of think and plan for CMMC certification. So that's our goal. And so we run a gap assessment and work through the POAM, the system security plan, the incident response plan to get all those things established. So you have a SPUR score, so you can go to your prime, you can go to your contracting officer and say, okay, I'm compliant now with DFAR 7012, and I'm working towards my CMMC certification. So that's kind of how we've done it, is try to get them in the door. The funding helps to kind of lower that burden. And then we can help them think long-term strategically of how they want to approach cybersecurity for their business.
Yep, agreed. And I think anyone that happened to see Bob Metzger's initial segment today during the summit, he painted a very compelling picture as to why the focus on NIST 800-171 and DFAR 7012 compliance should be at top of mind for everybody. And that if you do that, then the step up, as we go forward to CMMC level 3 is going to be much more straightforward. You don't need to get too caught up in the weeds of CMMC yet. There's plenty of regulations out there that are codified right now to go out and meet and address.
Right.
Okay, great. Richard, what do you have to add from that perspective? Any specific programs or workshops that you guys are engaged in to help in this space?
We have funding in Massachusetts that covers a lot of this stuff. We also have access to DoD funding through what used to be the OEA, which is the Office of Economic Adjustment. It's now the OLDCC, which is far less intuitive. But it's the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. And it's the way the DoD sort of levels the playing field a little bit and helps smaller manufacturers and underserved communities. In some cases, they funnel money to the state, and the state gets it down to centers like us, and we can help subsidize some of the costs of compliance or the compliance training if we're doing that, and just get people further along without breaking the bank, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Darold, anything to add around your engagement? Any specific offerings you provide for companies in Texas?
Well, much like Nathan and Richard, we're constantly pursuing grants. And, one of the things about MEP is we're not a typical consultant that you would normally hire. We are not measured by how many contracts per se that we sell or whatever the case may be. Our actual measurements off of NIST are off of what kind of impact we have on the company we're working with. So for myself, if I have a grant available to pay for some of these funds, like what my cohorts were talking about, it doesn't matter to me. The intent is to get them to the finish line. If I can use a grant, I'll use a grant. If I can't use a grant, we'll work through the base award and, just do a typical MEP engagement. But every time we do anything with a customer, whether it be cybersecurity, whether it be lean, whether it be whatever, generally anyone in the MEP, what's going through their mind is, I'm not just trying to do a job and charge somebody money. I've got to make a measurable impact on them, much greater than the cost of what they spend on me. And literally, Texas MEP over the last 5 years has done billions and billions of dollars of impact on the clients that we've worked with. And we didn't bring that much in. Let me just put it that way. A lot of this was, subsidized or whatever through the Department of Commerce and the like.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's extremely unique about the MEP. The other thing that's extremely unique about it is the fact that we're in all 50 states and the 2 U.S. territories. We've got MEP presence. So wherever you're at, there's an MEP.
Yeah, that's the important thing is we're nonprofits.
Yeah, we're not for profit.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, it sounds like you must be bringing, the MEPs are bringing a ton of real industry expertise to bear at a very good price point, essentially here. You've got folks on the teams who are experts in their field, have many years of experience, and are now able to share that back into the manufacturing community. And you can leverage that from a small investment into a big impact.
Right.
Well, actually, that's probably one thing to key on, and I'm not sure about my cohorts here, but they probably have the same story as me. I worked for Kimberly-Clark for a long time, besides working for the Army. And then after that, I worked for the Koch brothers. Okay. And I'm just a normal MEP person. I mean, every one of them's got their story or whatever. They were an expert in what they did, and they were recruited because of that. And I'm willing to bet if we asked Nathan and we asked Richard, they'd probably have a similar story.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, there are centuries of expertise at every MEP. It's astounding. I mean, we just had someone retire recently. He was 70 years old, and you know, just he'd go until he was 100 if his wife let him. You know, and there are a lot of people who have run manufacturing plants. You know, have been CEOs, who've been, you know, plant managers, and you know, have spent decades on call 24/7, making sure things were running. And then at some point just decided that, you know, they didn't want to die doing that, and they want to give back to the community and share some of that expertise. And we're all about knowledge sharing and you know, making things better.
Great. Nathan, anything to add?
No, nothing. Yeah, we have the same thing as Darold and Richard. A lot of expertise in manufacturing. And one thing we would add is we have a lot of expertise in our vendor relationships. So our network provides a lot of skills and knowledge that you might not get from a traditional consulting firm. So really tied in with the university systems in Virginia, the community college systems, the workforce development, and just the vendor network that we have relationships with can be a force multiplier for your business.
Yeah,
Great point.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, it was great. I'm glad that came out, that discussion came out during this panel. All right, let's move on to the next question. Richard, you get first crack at this one. Compliance documentation is a big part of the journey to CMMC compliance for these companies. How does the MEP help make this aspect of the project more manageable?
In our case, and keep in mind every MEP center operates differently. You know, some do everything in-house, some do everything with third-party consultants, some have a combination. We're one of those hybrid models where we've got, you know, 10 or 12 project managers on staff that are inside the factories doing all kinds of work all the time. And then we have a network of partners that we use for things like robotics and automation and IoT and cybersecurity in our case. Our cybersecurity partners are very good at what they do from a technical and a compliance standpoint. So they understand the documentation required to prove compliance, as well as all the technology required to actually, you know, secure the environment. And they typically are using, you know, other applications for managing that, you know, actively and in real time. You know, it's no more spreadsheets, you know, or clipboards, that kind of stuff. So they've got, you know, the policy tools they're using in many cases, PreVeil's SSP tools and things that you provide for policies, and then adapting that to the specific customer requirements, because every single manufacturing company is a snowflake.
Yeah, that's right. Unique. Absolutely. Nathan, what are your thoughts on the compliance documentation aspect of it? I know this is a big challenge for smaller companies, in particular, small mid-sized companies. How does Genedge help with that? Yeah,
and this is probably one of the biggest hurdles we are facing right now for our clients. So, I mean, our initial, you know, support we provide is we provide templates to our clients. They can take those, they can customize them, they can use them within their business, they can update them annually. We find that not as successful because there's just such a time commitment that a lot of these companies have to put towards those policy documents. They need an FTE usually to be devoted to developing those and updating them. They need to get buy-in from their leadership. They need to, have weekly meetings to talk about it, to make sure that they're doing the right policies, they're in place correctly. It's just a huge time commitment for our clients. A lot of our clients opt in for consulting support. Consultants come in and we'll provide, we work with third parties to bring consultants in to support small businesses to do it. That works better. If you have a third party come in to help do that, you can kind of get those things moved forward faster, make sure they're implemented correctly. It's just more expensive, and a lot of companies can't pay for that pricing model. It's just gotten too expensive for a lot of businesses. So we are trying, and we've been trying to develop and investing in more of an automated approach to policy documents. So a capability to kind of at least take away a lot of the human work that you'd have to do at the beginning, to try to automate it at first, and then you can still at least get to an 80% solution, and then maybe 20% is leadership decisions that they have to make on policies. So at least get a lot of that time down and that pricing down by automating it. So we've been doing a lot of investment in that with other MEPs as well, trying to use more AI and ML type modeling to help learn from what other companies have put in for policy documents. So if you have a company in Boise, Idaho, and a company in Arlington, Virginia, and they're very similar in what they do and what they build and their company size, a lot of those policies can just be transferred over. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do, is get the time down. That's the hardest part. And then trying to bring that price down so small businesses can do it at a good value. So that's been our goal here.
I like that. I like that model. Makes sense. Darold, any specific ads on the documentation or compliance from the compliance perspective?
Well, if you go back to history, okay, probably the last 20 plus years, MEP has been highly involved in helping companies, at least TMEC has down here, helping companies roll out ISO 9001, AS 9100, ISO 13845, and the list goes on. This is in many ways, documentation wise, this is much like doing those quality management systems. And when we do the rollout for the policies and procedures and everything else, we usually set it up very similar to whatever the quality management system of that particular company is, so they don't have to learn a new language to read the cyber documentation. So we integrate that into their quality management system and into the roots of their company. But this is, like I said, it's similar, but it's more difficult, more detailed, because everything here has a timestamp on it, and anybody that's familiar with quality management systems knows that about a month or 2 or 3 before they go up for an external audit, they're crunching, trying to fix all the paperwork to make sure everything's fine, and they don't have any findings or whatever, or very few. This stuff, you got to stay on top of it. You got to, but our typical approach here, what we're finding out, we're engaging companies sometimes that are very, very far along on DFARS, and sometimes they haven't even done anything like entered their SPRS score or PIE account or anything of that nature. So one of the things we're starting to do is we're starting to take a strategic look at this. Where are they at roughly, not in nth detail? Because I don't know, that to actually do a good gap assessment on a company can take 2 or 3 days. And, if they're not even close and the answer to everything's going to be no, and unless I'm just trying to get an SPRS score entered in there, I will do that. I will get a good quick assessment and get an SPRS score entered so that technically they are legal and contracts continue to flow. But we will take a breath and a step back then, and we'll start to look strategically for what do they really need? Do they need a really small enclave? Do they only need 1 or 2 computers? Or is 95 or 100% of this business DoD and we need to do the whole enchilada? What makes sense? And then, so in so doing, then I take a legal approach, because PreVeil is a great and wonderful thing. It gets you about halfway compliant with NIST 800-171. but it doesn't get you 100% compliant with 800-171. So, you know, if there are many customers that PreVeil is a good fit for. So then where do we put the rest? You know, I need to get the rest of the Lego blocks in place so that they are 100% compliant. And also part of this is them at their facility. So, you know, you can, you know, some things you just got to do for yourself. And most people, such as, you know, even you guys as PreVeil, you can help them with template policies and procedures and the like, but they got to find the one that's right and fits for them. And then they got to actually follow it and do it and document it. Yep. So, but us being MEP on site, you know, we can very much help integrate that whole system together.
Very good. Thanks, Darold. That was a good one. How about Nathan? I got another one for you here. Based on your experience to date with CMMC engagements, what are some strategies that you've seen your clients take, you know, or that you've worked with them to employ that have accelerated the process and reduced the cost associated with moving in the direction of compliance? Like, what are just some of the methods that you're finding work when it comes to these type of manufacturers?
Yeah, I'm not going to say there's like perfect strategy out there because I haven't seen one. And if it was, I'd use it for everyone. But I mean, I think the biggest thing is from the C-suite level is devoting some amount of time to this. You know, I get a lot of clients that get really energized about it. They're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to get compliant. CMMC, they're going to give us a competitive edge in our business. It's going to help us bid on contracts. And then they get busy with other things and they don't have the time to devote to it. So that's the biggest strategy, or the best lesson learned, is focusing on it, having time devoted to it, maybe a couple hours a week is crucial. It's not something that you can do really quickly. It's not something that is, you know, how you eat an elephant. You have to take a bite at a time. So it's a slow process. It's a maturity model. So it can take 6 months to a year to get to where you need to go. That's the biggest component. More practical things is we focus have our clients kind of focus on the technical side first, focusing on where CUI resides, where it's stored, how you transmit it. Those are crucial areas of getting a handle on, understanding how you're going to receive it, where it's going to lie, and your IP, making sure that's kind of either segmented off as well with your CUI. So those are the two areas we focus on, is focusing on CUI, storage and transmission, and then a lot of the other technical remediation things that need to be done, MFA, et cetera. And then adding on the policy documents after that. So focusing on policy documents once all the technical things have been implemented, being able to document that, and then show that you're making progress on updating those policies as time goes on. So that's the approach we take. I mean, I haven't seen a magic bullet out there, but it is not an easy process that you can just flip a switch on and have it done.
No, exactly. And I think you're spot on. I mean, I think really understanding who in the organization needs to touch or deal with CUI type content and what the workflows they have to deal with around that is absolutely critical to identify up front. Yep. Richard, additional color on that question? No,
I think one of the things that's we've done is taken the approach of reducing complexity. And very often that alone helps speed things along, because there's always stuff running that people don't even know why it's there. It's like, yeah. Why do you have this service running? I don't know. It's always been there. Oh, okay. Well, and then you dig into it and you realize, okay, we can shut this off. We can delete this. We're paying for a license for software we haven't used in 6 years. We can get rid of that. And it's like you start eliminating, the complexity, and you make the compliance go much faster. The other thing is, we're manufacturing experts, and we hire our third-party contractors who are manufacturing savvy. And if a company goes in, we have a cybersecurity partner who understands the manufacturing world and knows the additional attack surfaces that are going to be in that environment. You've got sensors and factory machines that are connected to the network. You've got 3D printers that are on the network. Somebody can hack into a 3D printer and steal CUI that way.
Mhm.
And there's all kinds of crazy stuff that manufacturers are dealing with above and beyond what the average company would be faced with. So it just helps to.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Darold, I'm gonna pass on to you, but I'm gonna pass it along with a specific question that just came in. One of the questions that came in from the audience here, because I think it might be part of your answer anyway, of how you can sort of accelerate the process, reduce the cost. The question is, how can a small business use an enclave approach for CMMC level 3 compliance? So with that, I'll let you take it whichever direction you wish.
Well, one of the things that, Nathan's spot on, there is no solution for everybody, but there tends to be groups of solutions for different size companies. Okay, if you're a small company, I'll say 1 to 10 people or 1 to 20 people, something of that nature. A very common strategic move would be to set up just basically an IT or a computer enclave. Now, if I were to share some of the roadmaps and stuff that we use, we actually do a mapping, a network mapping to show where, CUI would potentially reside in the company networks or computers and, electronically storage. And then we would also do a site map for where physical CUI might actually reside in the company. But, if you could picture this, one company I just worked with just recently that, was basically one of those phone calls that, oh my God, I hate to say it, but we're not, we got 30 days to enter our SBRS score, or we're not, they're going to cancel our contracts, and the sky is falling, and this is a really, really bad day, and we need help. And, after we triaged this company, one of the things, we took that strategic look back. In reality wise, they could contain all of that CUI in one computer. Okay. And, so basically the way the SSP and everything was written electronically, all of that material was stored in one computer. Now, that computer also, was locked up with a printer and the like and everything else. The rest of their process, they essentially printed out drawings, or whatever, and put them in paper routers, to essentially route the CUI through the operation in the facility. And they would make the parts and package them and send them off and everything else. So on the facility side, even though only that one computer contained electronic CUI type information, the whole facility was secured and locked down. And for a paper and a part and employee access, generally all their employees had paper part and, access to CUI. They didn't necessarily have electronic access. A much smaller group has that. And then, usually when you're doing an enclave, you can have even a much smaller group, maybe have electronic admin access versus electronic user access for CUI. But if you make that subsystem smaller, it's easier to contain, cheaper to build. This same principle works with bigger companies. You can have 50 people in a company, and you can have 5 people that have electronic access to CUI, but if they're routing paper, basically paper work orders to do the work, then everyone in the facility, because then you don't have to try to separate out all the workers. It's like, okay, otherwise I got to take all the CUI and I put it in a little room and lock it, and only people that are authorized to be in there can get it. But those two don't have to match. And, that I've talked to, I've ran that up all the levels of NIST. I've talked to the CMMC accreditation board, and they have pretty much agreed with my, assessment that those two don't have to match. They just have to be defined, and you have to follow whatever you're doing.
Yep. Well, I think we definitely appreciate and value the enclave approach that is sanctioned by the DoD for management of CUI. It's a great approach for reducing costs, for speeding the process up, You know, so we're big fans of that ourselves. I know you are as well, having worked with you on many projects.
Yep.
So that's excellent. I liked, you know, Richard's comments around, hey, let's see if we can if we can simplify some of the things we do in the organization to make the cybersecurity job that much easier. Just like it's easier to clean a house if it doesn't have stuff everywhere, right? So
Right.
yeah, that's
Or
I
if it's
think
really
that makes
small.
Now enclaves don't always make, enclaves are not the answer for everything.
not everything. Nope, agreed.
There are some businesses that's pretty much all they do is they just do DoD contracts and everything else. And frankly, at that point in time, then it becomes a business decision. And if it makes more sense, you know, financially from a business decision, to not do it that way, to protect the whole network, then you protect the whole network. But in order to meet the minimum requirements and everything else and keep the contracts flowing, enclaves is a very good, cost-effective option for small businesses.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. One last question. We'll do a round on here. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier. I think grants were mentioned before, but if we could just go around, and Richard, I'll start with you, but you know, I find the MEPs are a terrific value for small and mid-sized manufacturers out there when it comes to this type of advice, the consulting associated with getting this compliance project going and helping them through this. Why are you a better value generally, or what's your opinion on that? How does that happen? And are there any specific grants or examples that you provide of how you'd put those to work for you know, companies in this space?
So MEPs are nonprofits, right? We are all nonprofit entities. Some are state agencies, some are tied to universities, state universities. But we are nonprofit, and we are partially subsidized through the Department of Commerce, through NIST. So our cost is much lower than the typical, you know, for-profit consulting company or for-profit service company. We're not tied to any specific technology. We're not beholden to any other, you know, providers. We also are good at uncovering grant money. And you know, from the private sector, we didn't know from grants. You know, and I still talk to companies today. I'm like, hey, there's a grant available for that, and they have no idea what that is. And it's like, you know, they think it's a loan, and it's not a loan. It's free money, essentially. It's your taxpayer dollars coming back to you in different forms. So in Massachusetts, we have workforce training related grants that are ongoing, that are being paid for by every company who pays, you know, taxes. And then we have occasional other grants that we discover through NIST. Largely, they come down and say, hey, like, this is available, and it's X thousands of dollars of this bucket, and it can be applied to X, Y, and Z. And we did that with dozens of companies where we had an extra $6,000 to apply to their assessment services. So these are the things that we have people. We have 3 grant writers on staff. We have people that do nothing but look for this stuff. And I think it's a great resource, and it's basically one of those best kept secrets, because there's not a whole lot of marketing involved.
I mean, $6,000 is a big contribution for a lot of these companies, right? They don't have a line item for this project, and to get $6,000 contributed toward it can make or break the success of the project. So that's great to hear.
Right.
Nathan, how about in Virginia?
Yeah, I'll echo everything Richard just said. You know, when it comes to CMMC, I've heard from a lot of clients say this is a new tax on my business. And the grant money that, you know, we help administer can help get some of that money back that you're being taxed on, as well as trying to figure out ways how you can, you know, get R&D credit for it maybe at the end of the year or something like that. So we'll work with you to try to figure out ways to bring that cost down. I will add, though, you know, we have grants, but grants are not the long-term solution to cybersecurity. I mean, it's not going to be around forever. It's not going to take you all the way through. It's going to get you something. It's going to help a little bit, take a little bit of the pain away, but there's still an investment you need to make, and it's still work that needs to be done. The approach we've taken in Virginia is to create kind of a marketplace within Virginia. So you have the CMMC AB, they have their own marketplace. We're trying to take that kind of model and into Virginia and build our own marketplace where we're looking for not even just Virginia companies, but national companies that specialize in CMMC support, as well as understand manufacturing companies. And we continually assess them. We continually look at their past work to let them into our marketplace and then have them continuously bid on work. So we're trying to use that free market model to try to get prices down, try to get them stabilized, and try to get them some kind of price transparency into the market is our goal. So if you're a manufacturing business, you're a small company, you're not searching Google, you're not searching the CMMC AB website and saying, this looks like a great company, I should work with them, without any knowledge of them at all already. So we're trying to build that trusted, vendor relationship. We're trying to build that marketplace to try to stabilize the process and put some kind of trust in this arrangement, because there's no trust in there right now if you're a small business.
Okay. Very good. Darold, how about yourself? How about in Texas in terms of financial benefits of working with an MEP, grants available? That's an important part of this for small companies.
Well, we just closed out a grant essentially the end of September. It was a CARES Act grant, which we actually did a lot of this work under, to help companies come up with plans and everything. But really grants, I do agree with Nathan that grants aren't necessarily, grants are a crutch, but they're not necessarily the answer. Where MEP really shines in this area or whatever is they come in, they help you assess the business, because somebody goes out, they go to look for, they go out and they look on Google, they're trying to find somebody. And, frankly, PreVeil, you're honest. You tell them up front what you do and what you don't do. There's been several engagements where I've come across where people have been there before me and they were not very honest, and they may have charged $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 or something like that, and then not really provided that value. Where when I engage with a company, one of the things I try to do is I try to understand the company, try to figure out, what's the best strategic option for them, and then hook them up with the right people, which, many times has been PreVeil, but not always. But, really what you don't want me to hook you up, PreVeil, if it's a company that is just not going to be a good fit, because you're going to spend a lot of time trying to do proposals and estimates and everything else, and your win ratio is not going to be high. Whereas if I bring in, if I got a company that would be a good fit for PreVeil, then, you may have one or two other companies bidding against you, but the three of you are probably a good fit for this company. So it's good for them, it's good for you, not wasting a lot of time, as opposed to going out there and trying to sort through the literally hundreds and maybe thousands of offerings out there. And, and then half of those offerings maybe are, I hate to say it, but they're snake oil salesmen. I just can't say it better than that. They want your money and, oh yeah, we'll help you do this and everything else, but they're not what I would call legitimate players. And, there's a lot of Wild West in this industry right now. And I'm sure it'll sort itself out over time, but they can get away with that right now because there's not these third-party audits and everything. There's been several companies that I was called into to come in and take a look at and say, okay, how, we think we're there. How are we doing? And, some of them were pretty close. Others, it's like, nope, you missed here, you missed here, you missed here, you missed here. They coached you poorly. You didn't get what you were asking for. And, we've also had some companies that we work with. I think somebody hit on this one earlier. We had a particular company that we worked with that probably about 3 years ago. And they were an early adopter and they really, really picked this stuff up and really, really worked hard on it. Okay, in 2020, they were estimating that their business was going to grow by 50%. Well, they were wrong. It actually grew between 250 and 300%. So, you know, now we're working with them because of some other problems. You know, how do you meet all that demand? But you get the picture. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, this is, if you do this and you do it right. Something else I will mention. I am one of those MEPs where I actually roll up the sleeves and work with the companies. And I do that, frankly, because in Texas, I don't have a choice. I can't very effectively, you know, pass it off to a third party to do the work, just the way the laws are written. But I generally recommend that any company that's going on a pursuit for this, set up a job number and they track all costs associated with this. Because whenever they get hit with change notices or contract negotiations or whatever the case may be, you know, they have very clear documentation as to what they're spending to do this. And the second thing that jumps out at me is, you know, on down the line somewhere, it might be smart in your bid to give your bid and then give an upcharge or whatever for what it's costing you to meet the cybersecurity requirements, because that sends two messages to the prime or whoever you're working with. One, it sends, you know, it helps you recover some of the costs that you're incurring to meet these requirements. And the second thing it does is, hey, these guys are really doing this. They're not just pencil whipping the score and saying they're 110 when they're not. You know, they're really making an effort to be this. So, but I just say as a minimum, you know, track these expenses, and then when you're doing negotiations, you've got that information.
Yeah, well, this is a value add, right? This is a value add throughout the supply chain. You guys are part of the value. These companies are investing in that value, and it's worth making sure everyone's clear that that's being provided. So again, I'm going to wrap up. I think what's really come across here, you know, from the team of MEPs here is that there's a tremendous value and knowledge, not just of the industry, of the challenges facing manufacturers and the ability to go in and add a lot of value, but a knowledge of the vendor community in the space, the knowledge of players like PreVeil and others that are the Legos that build the solution, the ultimate solution for full compliance, that there is some a good value in working with MEPs, and that there are some potential grants available as well that can help facilitate the path to full compliance. So yeah, I mean, I can say I've had very positive experiences working with MEPs across the country in helping companies move toward, you know, full NIST 800-171 or CMMC level 3 compliance, and looking forward to many more of those with the team that's on the screen here, as well as others that are in the MEP National Network. So I want to thank Richard. Thanks, Nathan. Thank you, Darold. You guys were terrific. Really enjoyed the session. We're going to take a break here. It's about 4:55 and Eastern time. And at the top of the hour, we'll be starting a session, another interesting session in the PreVeil CMMC Industry Summit. So thanks all for joining who were on the participant side. Thanks for your questions. And please continue to enjoy the PreVeil CMMC Summit.